What if I told you the most important 8 minutes of a football game are not the last 8 minutes, but instead the middle 8 minutes? Let me explain. In a study by SportsSource Analytics between 2014 and 2019, Division I college teams that won the middle 8, which is the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, won 74% of the time. During that span, the top 10 teams with the highest positive scoring differential in the middle 8 had a combined winning percentage of 76. Of the top 10 teams with the highest overall winning percentage, 6 of those teams were in the top 10 and highest positive scoring differential in the middle 8. We see similar numbers in the NFL. In 2022, 7 of the top 10 teams with the highest win percent were in the top 10 and middle 8 point differential. We don't see a combined winning percentage as high in the NFL as we do in college, since NFL teams are much closer in talent than college teams, but still, the teams in the top 10 and middle 8 point differential had a combined winning percentage of 57 compared to 47 for teams in the bottom 10. So, why is the middle 8 so important? Possessions in football are extremely valuable. Unlike sports such as basketball, where each team will get the ball roughly 100 times per game, each team has on average 11 to 12 possessions in a game of football. And considering that over half of all NFL games end with a margin of victory of 1 possession or less, every possession matters. We can see the importance of this in turnover margin. Teams that win the turnover margin by 1 win on average 70% of the time. A margin of 2 increases the win percent to 84, and a margin of 3 turnovers increases the win percent to 91. There are 2 times in a game that we know that a drive will end. That's at the end of each half. By being able to control the clock and prevent the other team from getting the ball with enough time to score before halftime, this is the only time in a game where a team can score and not give possession back to the other team. This is particularly useful when you elect to kick off to start the game so that you can get the ball first after halftime. More on that later. Teams can essentially game plan a way to manufacture a turnover by utilizing proper clock management, stealing an extra possession. It gets even more interesting. If a team doesn't score before the end of half, they want to do everything they can to limit the amount of plays the other team can run within the last 2 minutes of the first half. More points are scored in the last 2 minutes of the first half than any other 2-minute period of the game. In 2022, 11% of all points scored were in this time frame that only accounts for 3% of an entire game. More points were scored in the final 2 minutes of the first half than the final 4 minutes in the second half. That's some extremely valuable information for those of you out there that like to wager on games. Most fans groan when the end of the half comes around and their team is on defense. The opposing team starts passing more, the defense goes into prevent mode, and the offense moves the ball up the field with ease. By controlling the clock in the final 4 minutes of the half, the offense is not only getting extra points, but protecting the defense by not putting them on the field when the most points are scored. By electing to receive the ball in the second half, the team that controls the last 4 minutes of the first half can compound this effort and completely change the landscape of the game. This is why we see some teams defer to the second half. Let's take a look at some examples. In the Week 1 matchup between the Lions and Eagles, the Lions answered a pick 6 with a drive that lasted nearly 5 minutes and resulted in a touchdown. This brought the score from 21-7 to 21-14. With 1 minute and 51 seconds left, the Eagles put together a drive that ended with a field goal, making the score 24-14. The Eagles received the second half kickoff and reeled off a long drive, ending in a touchdown. While technically this doesn't fall into the middle 8 statistics because the Eagles scored with 10:21 remaining, the principle still applies. The Lions were only down 1 possession after their touchdown in the second quarter, but by the time they got the ball back, they were now down 3 possessions. That deficit proved too much to overcome, and Detroit lost by 3. Winning the middle 8 was what decided that game. In Week 15 against the Bears, the Eagles were trailing 3-6 with 2 minutes and 49 seconds left. The Eagles went down the field and scored a touchdown, taking a 10-6 lead. The Bears got the ball back with 38 seconds in the first half, but it's rare to see a team put together a scoring drive with that little time left, and ultimately the clock ran out. The Eagles received the second half kickoff and scored another touchdown in just under 3 minutes. The Bears were winning late in the first half, but by the time they got the ball back with any real time to conduct their offense, they were now down 2 possessions. The Eagles ended up winning by 1 possession, 25-20. Unsurprisingly, the Eagles were one of the best teams when it came to the middle 8. They were second in the league to the 49ers, with the difference being an interception returned for a touchdown by the 49ers against the Panthers. The Eagles scored 90 points in the middle 8, not including the Lions touchdown, which was the most in the league. There were 6 in total plays in the last 4 minutes of the first half, which helped protect their defense, as their defense ranked 16th in points allowed in the final 2 minutes. That doesn't sound that bad, but when you consider the defense was 27th lowest in plays faced, that doesn't sound so good anymore. I guess that's a little unfair to the defense, as they gave up the third lowest yards per play in the last 2 minutes. 2 of the 6 field goals they allowed were due to big plays given up on special teams, and another was a low percentage 58-yard attempt that was good. But still, the Eagles' offense allowed them to win the middle 8 consistently. So, why are the Eagles so good in the middle 8? It all starts with the offense. In the final 4 minutes of the first half, the Eagles do a tremendous job of controlling the clock, extending drives, and keeping their defense off the field. It's no secret that the Eagles possess one of the best run games in the league, and that pays off in the final 4. They were second in the NFL in rush attempts in the final 4 minutes of the first half. And because they were so efficient, averaging 5.8 yards per carry in this time frame, they were able to stay ahead of the sticks while keeping the clock moving. They would be patient getting the clock to the 2-minute warning. Once the 2-minute warning arrived, the Eagles had 2 objectives. First was to make sure that they could run the clock down as much as possible so that the opposing offense couldn't respond. More often than not, they would run the ball in the first play to get the clock moving. They would then snap the ball about 30 seconds later. This is a happy medium between killing the clock and running hurry up. They want to score, but if they can't, they want to give the ball back to the other team with less than a minute left. It's just hard to move the ball enough to score with under a minute in the NFL, and often, it leads to turnovers and sacks. Once the Eagles got their first down, their game plan changed. They would get into hurry up, but if they weren't close to midfield, they were still fairly conservative in their play calling. The main play they would run next would be some type of design checkdown to Kenny Gainwell. Knowing teams would be in a prevent defense to limit big plays, they would intentionally run deep routes with the receivers and tight ends to open up space underneath for easy completions. Pretty common tactic in the NFL. An astonishing 45% of Gainwell's targets all season came in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Jalen's legs also played a factor as well. If he didn't check down a Gainwell, the clear-out routes usually opened up enough space for Hurts to take off running. The value of running quarterbacks cannot be overstated in 2-minute drills. When defenses are looking to limit big plays, they open up room for quarterbacks to pick up easy yards. 9% of Jalen's rushing attempts came within this 3% time frame of the game. This is the same for other mobile quarterbacks as well. For the likes of Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, and Russell Wilson, anywhere from 9% to 15% of their rushes came in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Once the Eagles got closer to midfield, defenses would start to tighten up in an attempt to prevent them from getting into field goal range. If you're going to lead the league in points scored in the middle 8, you're going to have to score touchdowns. And if you're going to score touchdowns in 2-minute drills, you're going to have to produce big plays. This is where the Eagles' weapons and Jalen's wizardry come into play. A.J. Brown went from 17 yards per catch to 21 yards per catch in the final 2 minutes of the first half. Smitty went from 12.6 to 18.9 yards per catch, and Goddard went from 12.8 to 18. The Eagles' 7.3 yards per attempt was 4th in the league in the final 2 minutes. However, winning the last 4 minutes of the first half is only half the battle in winning the middle 8. Winning the first 4 minutes of the second half matters too. If the Eagles won the coin toss, they always deferred to the second half. They were tied for first in the league in points scored in the first 4 minutes of the second half. The team they were tied with? Bill Belichick and the Patriots, who popularized the middle 8 strategy. Receiving the ball after the break allows the offense extra time to make adjustments at halftime for their next drive. And when on the road, it also has the added benefit of reduced fan noise. Fans are usually the loudest at the beginning of the game and the end of the game, if it's close. If you've ever been to an NFL game, you know that at the beginning of the second half, the stands are half empty because of fans waiting in line for the pisser and to grab their beers. Less fan noise makes it easier for an offense to operate. In addition, if the team receiving the second half kickoff executed their 4-minute offense in the first half well, then the opposing offense will have been off the field for 45 minutes to an hour of real time. While it's not foolproof, this can take away momentum that an opposing offense had built. As a result, the Eagles' offense ran the second most plays, and their defense faced the third lowest amount of plays in the first 4 minutes of the second half, allowing them extra time to rest. Several times in this season, when the defense got back on the field, the score is completely different than the last time that they were on the field. It's not hard to understand why the Eagles were able to rack up 70 sacks last year. They had good players, of course, but they often had extra opportunities to rush the passer because teams would be behind on the scoreboard with time running out. Nick Sirianni gets a lot of praise for his willingness to go for it on 4th down. He was ranked first in Football Outsider's Critical Call Index in 2022. But he should also get more credit for his play design, game planning, and clock management that allowed the Eagles to steal extra possessions. Much of the Eagles' success in 2022 was due to their excellence and the most important 8 minutes in football.